Today, all countries in the world are in debt. For example, the United States debt has exceeded $38 trillion, reaching the highest level in its history. The European Union has approximately $14 trillion in debt. Japan's debt is over $9 trillion. Even oil-rich Saudi Arabia or export giants like Germany and China have extraordinary levels of debt. But there is an unusual situation here. If everyone is in debt, who are all these countries indebted to? The interesting part is this: debt is actually accepted as one of the cornerstones of the modern era. Wars, economic crises, periods of growth. All of them are built on debt. And when you follow the chain of debt, you realize this: the world is not indebted to someone specific, but in a complete sense, it is indebted to itself. However, this does not mean that everyone is equally indebted within this system. To understand how this system emerged, it is necessary to go back to very old times. In 1694, England was at war with France and had run out of money. The rulers borrowed money from merchants. In return, they guaranteed interest payments through taxes that would be collected in the future. The Bank of England was established to manage this system. This event created a major change in the financial world, because states started to spend money that did not belong to them. Lenders, on the other hand, acted based on the promises given by the state. Thus, government bonds emerged and the modern financial system began to be established. Over time, all countries adopted this system. Borrowing was no longer seen as a sign of weakness, but as an indicator of strength and reliability. In the past, states fought to find gold. Now they issue government bonds to earn interest. Today, debt has taken its place as one of the largest economic instruments in the world. Total global debt has exceeded $315 trillion. That is almost 3 times the size of the world economy. So who owns this debt? For example, most of the United States debt actually belongs to American citizens. Banks, pension funds, investment companies, and even the Federal Reserve hold a significant portion of this debt. Foreign countries do have a share, but it is not as large as we imagine. This situation is not only valid for the United States. Countries lend money to each other. Japan lends money to America. America lends money to Europe. Europe lends money to developing countries. Those countries then invest their money back into the bonds of large economies. In other words, the system operates like a constantly rotating wheel. One of the strongest pillars of this system is the financial markets and central banks. When central banks buy government bonds, they essentially create new money. That is why every unit of money in circulation has debt behind it. In other words, there is no such thing as debt-free money. This system has been functioning for years because people and investors believe that governments will repay their debts. In reality, most of the time, the full debt is not repaid. New debt is taken to pay off old debt. Governments are forced to constantly renew their debt. Strange but true. In the modern economy, even fully paying off debts may be an undesirable situation, because government bonds are among the safest investment instruments in the financial system. If these debts were completely paid off, banks and investment funds could lose their safest assets, and the economy could face serious collapse. For this reason, governments never try to eliminate debt completely. They try to keep it at a manageable level. The system is actually built on trust. As long as people and markets trust this system, the wheel keeps turning. However, when trust is shaken, things change. We have seen this in countries like Greece, Argentina, and Sri Lanka. When debts were not paid, economic crisis, unemployment, and political problems emerged. There is also a social side to this issue. The debt system does not provide equal profit to everyone. Interest payments usually flow from workers and taxpayers toward those who invest and own debt. For this reason, as debt increases, economic inequality may also grow. Ultimately, all of us are part of this system. Governments borrow money, banks multiply it, investors profit from it, and citizens continue to live within this system. Debt is no longer just a burden. It is one of the fundamental components of the modern economy. But there is one thing that should not be forgotten. This system is entirely built on trust. If that trust disappears one day, we may remember what debt really is. A promise that is difficult to keep.